Okay, so my next in my series of menstrual product reviews is the Diva Cup. The Diva Cup, so I have my cute little bag here that it comes with, and I'll remove it here so you can see it. So this is what the size 2 looks like, right? And so a Diva Cup, really any menstrual cup, is just a medical grade silicone that's meant to be inserted at the base of the cervix, and then you create kind of some suction and it holds it in place, and then as you're going throughout your day it should stay in the appropriate place and collect that menstrual fluid, right? And it is reusable, so then when you're ready to change it in the bathroom, you're gonna use the stem, kind of break the seal, pull the cup out, dump it out, wash it out in your sink, and then you reinsert the same cup. So yeah, pretty new to the market, not quite as new as menstrual discs, but menstrual cups have been gaining in popularity, and I think for pretty good reason. Overall, I think Diva is kind of the lead brand in the industry, so that's why I decided to review this one. There are different sizes available, and the sizes really don't have anything to do with like your BMI, a woman's body size. They really go by your obstetric history primarily. So if you are a teenager, no history of pelvic pain, never had a baby, right, you're gonna need a really pretty small cup to fit in there, right? And if you've had babies, that tissue has already kind of been distorted and stretched a little bit, and so you're gonna need a bigger cup just to maintain its position. So also keep in mind, this isn't like using regular or super tampons. It doesn't matter how much you're menstruating. That's not what's gonna determine the size of the cup. It's all about the right fit, not about the amount of menstrual fluid or about like your overall body size. The other thing is that different cups on the market have different shapes to them. I haven't found anything that really talks about what the strategy is for getting the different shapes. It seems to just be brand related. So find the shape that's comfortable for you based on the brand most likely, because they all kind of look a little bit different. Most of them though, at the base of the cup will have a little stem, and you can decide to leave it long, cut it down. I think for most women, they're gonna feel most comfortable cutting it down like I did with this one, because when you cut it down, then you don't have this stem irritating the sensitive tissue in the vaginal canal, because that just is not gonna feel good moving around throughout the day and kind of having that rough, rigid silicone irritating things. So cutting it down helps. The reason to keep a stem longer is just if you're having a harder time like with removing it and you wanna make sure you have something to grip onto. Okay, so the pros. When I use this for a few cycles just to kind of give it a fair assessment and try to kind of use that learning curve and make sure I felt comfortable using it before I assessed. And overall, I thought it was pretty consistently good at collecting menstrual fluid, so I wasn't having any leakage, which is really important, right? When you're trying to be active and move around. This is a big reason why a lot of women don't like just wearing pads. They want to use some sort of internal product because they want to avoid leaks, right? And avoid messiness. And so the menstrual cup is really great for that, to avoid the leaks. At least it was for me. It's reusable, so good for the environment, better for the environment than a lot of typical menstrual products. When you're washing this, and I mean, it's the use of the water, right? The use of the materials for the original product, and then this little bag, but there's not really any ongoing supply, right? So that's pretty cool, right? It's also pretty small. It's very small. I would say this is as portable as maybe 2 little compact tampons. So keeping this in a bag, super simple. So as you know, if you follow my blog, I practice a fertility awareness-based method for family planning. So I never am really caught off guard with when I'm starting my period, but for a lot of women, they just want to have a product with them at all times, just in case. And this is a really nice compact way to do that. It's relatively cheap. So I did some math, and it's pretty staggering how much money most women will spend on menstrual products. And I know there's a lot of controversy about that and basically taxing women just for menstruating. And this one-time purchase of the menstrual cup, you know, hopefully this lasts quite a while. It's gonna replace a ton of other disposable products, so that's really great. I liked the design, specifically of the Diva Cup, because it has these ridges at the bottom to make it easier to grip when you're trying to place it and when you're trying to remove it. And so you would want to break the seal, like I mentioned, and this really just helps with being able to grab onto it, break the seal to remove it. It was, like I mentioned, the stem was uncomfortable. And so most women are just going to want to cut that down, most likely. Depending on their anatomy. But for me, I was like, ooh, this is uncomfortable, but I was able to kind of get it figured out to where it was better. It's really nice that this can be worn up to 12 hours, theoretically, right? Unless you're menstruating more than this. But this is a product that you should be able to safely wear at night, according to the current research, not linked to toxic shock syndrome. So tampons should not really theoretically be worn overnight. That's too long to be wearing them. You could keep this in for 12 hours and be able to remove it comfortably and not be worried about toxic shock overnight. Another really unique benefit of it is that it has some measuring lines on the inside, and because of that, you actually have an awareness of how much you're menstruating. So it's, when I talk to women about fertility awareness, most women have no idea really how to quantify like heavy, moderate, light bleeding, very heavy bleeding, because you just can't really tell when you're just changing menstrual products throughout the day. But this, you actually could see how much you're filling it up when you're dumping it out, which is kind of interesting. That does bring me to some of the cons though. A little bit of an ick factor, once again, because it's not like a tampon where it's just absorbed and then you're throwing it away. You are manually cleaning this, just like a menstrual disc where you're seeing menstrual fluid, right? And you're dumping it out. I should retract that. Menstrual disc you don't wash and reuse, but you're still getting that ick factor, similar with the menstrual cup. You also have to have a sink available if you're wanting to actually rinse it and wash it, which you should do before you reinsert it. So this would be really hard, and I did observe this. It's pretty hard in a public bathroom if there are a bunch of stalls. You can't really like remove it, walk out, wash it, go back into the bathroom and reinsert it like in the stall. You kind of have to have like a family bathroom or an individual bathroom where you have that sink available. So it may be kind of hard for some people to access depending on their work environment or school environment or however their bathrooms are set up. Let's see, this was the biggest issue for me. It is pretty bulky and heavy. So I have a history of pelvic pain, vaginismus, and this was kind of uncomfortable to insert. It's pretty darn bulky. Even when you fold it up like you're supposed to insert it, it's not that comfortable. So getting it in the right place, I was aware of it being there, and it felt kind of painful, which I didn't love. Feeling like there was just something there that's just never comfortable, like a tampon falling out or something. It's just a terrible feeling. You just your brain's just paying a lot of attention to it. And it also, as far as heaviness, I did weigh it. So let's see, this was 0.6 ounces. So, and this was on like a very specific kitchen scale, right? So 0.6 ounces, that's pretty comparable to the size of a pessary, if you know what that is. So a pessary is an object that a woman can insert vaginally to help avoid prolapse. So if they have prolapse and the organs are kind of falling into that vacant space in the vaginal canal, the pessary pushes things back in place and can help avoid like that discomfort of heaviness of pelvic organ prolapse, or ideally also help avoid leaking or any fecal incontinence and things like that. So this, if you have a hard time with holding in the weight of something like this, which is pretty common with pessaries, I can only imagine it'd be difficult to hold in the menstrual cup as well. So you have to have some support of that pelvic floor and that activation to keep it in place. Otherwise, as you're moving around and like bearing down, it may just keep feeling like it's shifting and falling, which is not very good. To avoid that shifting and falling, you want to have a good seal on it, but that's also problematic for a lot of women. So basically, the majority of women that have had a vaginal delivery, and even if you haven't had a vaginal delivery, but a cesarean delivery, right? You've had some sort of that like weight shifting down into the pelvic cavity, and it's very common to have pelvic organ prolapse. So I have some pelvic organ prolapse. For me, the seal of the menstrual cup was not good. There were just a lot of times where I felt like it was suctioning my organs down, and I was like, okay, that feels like it's making my prolapse a little more aggravated or exacerbated. And so that's probably my biggest critique. The weight and just the suction that it provides is not going to be a good option for people that have had a history of pelvic organ prolapse, for people that have a history of pelvic pain where it's just hard to have something space occupying like that and just kind of be irritating the tissue. And then if you have a really weak pelvic floor, you just may have a hard time holding it in and not just having it constantly kind of be dropping down onto the pelvic floor. So this was, I kind of have a mixed bag of reviews here. I think overall this is a very innovative product. I think a ton of women really love their menstrual cups. I would say it's primarily going to be nulliparous women, so women that have never had babies that don't maybe have some of this other pelvic floor dysfunction that the cup is going to make worse. So if you are a woman with no history of pelvic pain, no history of pelvic organ prolapse, and not a particularly weak pelvic floor, the menstrual cup is a great option that's sustainable, reusable, and probably going to save you quite a bit of money and also just be pretty convenient to carry around with you. But if you know that you're out and about a lot, you're not going to have access to a bathroom with a sink, or if you know you have any of those pelvic dysfunctions that I mentioned, then this may not be a great product for you. Okay, thank you.